Let me start with a situation that I know you've lived through. You get paid. You feel that tiny rush of relief. And then, almost immediately, you start doing mental math in your head. Rent is this, credit card is that, groceries went up again, gas is insane. I'll probably just move this bill to next month. And you're not irresponsible. You're not lazy. You're doing everything you were told was right. You work hard. You try to save something. You avoid the really dumb mistakes. But somehow, it still feels like money just leaks out of your life. And then you look at certain families, maybe people you grew up with, co-workers, or that one annoying friend who doesn't even make that much. And they're just calm about money. No panic, no constant stress, no emotional roller coaster every time a bill shows up. And here's the part that really messes with your head. It's not because they're smarter than you. It's not because they work harder than you. And it's definitely not because they discovered some secret crypto coin in 2012. Here's the thing most people don't realize. They were taught a completely different set of money rules, early. Rules that never get written down. Rules that don't show up in school. Rules that quietly shape how they think, spend, save, and invest for the rest of their lives. And if no one ever explicitly teaches you those rules, you end up playing the money game on hard mode without even knowing it. Now, before we go any further, my name is Bobby, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people actually build wealth over time. If you're someone who feels like you make decent money but still don't feel financially secure, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Alright, let's talk about what's really going on here. Because most financial advice online starts in the wrong place. It starts with tactics. Cut your lattes. Use this budgeting app. Max out this account. And look, those things can help. But they don't explain why some people naturally make better money decisions without obsessing over spreadsheets. This is where psychology comes in. According to research from the University of Cambridge, most of our core money habits are formed by around age 7. Before you understood compound interest, before you had a credit score, before you ever earned a real paycheck, by then your brain had already started forming beliefs like money is stressful, money disappears fast, rich people are lucky or greedy, or money is a tool, it's predictable. And those beliefs quietly drive your behavior for decades. Here's a stat that really puts this into perspective. According to the Federal Reserve, nearly 60% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing. Not because they're reckless, but because they were never taught how to structure their financial life. Meanwhile, families that build wealth across generations aren't obsessed with income. They're obsessed with invisible rules. Rules about how money flows. Rules about when money gets touched and when it absolutely doesn't. Rules about emotion, timing, and control. And today I'm going to break down 4 hidden money rules that wealthy families teach early, often without ever saying them out loud. And fair warning, some of these are going to feel uncomfortable because they directly challenge what most of us were taught growing up. Now you might be thinking, "Hey Bobby, but I didn't grow up rich. Isn't it too late?" No. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because once you see these rules, you can start applying them immediately. No trust fund required. Let me show you the first one. Rule number 1, preview. Income is less important than control. Most people grow up believing the goal is to make more money. More income. More security, right? But wealthy families teach something very different. Control beats income. Every time. Let me give you a simple example. Person A makes $120,000 a year. Person B makes $70,000 a year. Sounds obvious who's better off, right? Except person A has a car payment, high fixed expenses, lifestyle inflation, zero flexibility, and person B has low fixed costs, automated savings margin in their budget options. When something unexpected happens, person A panics. Person B adjusts. This isn't about discipline, it's about structure. And rich families teach kids early that whoever controls their expenses controls their future, not whoever earns the most. But I don't want to just tell you this. In the next part, I'll break down the exact psychological trap that keeps people chasing income, why raises often don't make people feel richer, and how wealthy families quietly design their lives to avoid this trap altogether. That's where rule number 1 really clicks. Rule number 1. Income is less important than control. All right. Let's really unpack this, because this rule alone explains so much financial frustration. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain is wired to chase income, not control. Why? Because income is visible. It's measurable. It feels like progress. You get a raise and your brain goes, I'm winning. But control is boring. Control doesn't trigger dopamine. And wealthy families understand this difference early. They don't celebrate raises. They celebrate margin. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Look, this is painfully common. You're making $60,000, you feel stretched. You tell yourself, if I just made $80,000, everything would be easier. Then you get the raise. And for about 2 months, it is easier. Then what happens? You upgrade your car a little. You move to a slightly nicer place. You stop checking prices as closely. You say yes to things you used to say no to. And suddenly, you're stressed again. Same anxiety, same pressure. Just bigger numbers. This is called lifestyle inflation. And it's not a willpower issue. It's psychological. According to behavioral economists, humans anchor their spending to their income faster than they adjust their sense of security. Translation? Your expenses rise before your brain feels safe. And this is where wealthy families do something radically different. They teach this rule early. Income increases are optional. Expense increases are not automatic. That one belief changes everything. Let's keep this extremely real. Scenario A. You make $5,000 per month. Your fixed expenses are $4,500. That means margin, $500 flexibility, almost 0-1 problem. Debt scenario. B. You make $3,800 per month. Your fixed expenses are $2,200. That means margin, $1,600 options, breathing room, psychological safety. Now here's the uncomfortable question. Who's actually wealthier? Not emotionally, structurally. Person B controls their life. Person A is owned by it. This is why rich families obsess over fixed costs. Housing, transportation, recurring obligations. They teach kids early that these are decision points, not facts of life. Most people grow up thinking rent is just expensive. Cars are just costly. This is just how life works. Wealthy families think, how permanent is this decision? How hard is this to reverse? What does this lock me into? That mindset is everything. This is where psychology really kicks in. Studies on financial stress show that perceived control matters more than income level when it comes to anxiety. Not total dollars, not salary, control. If your brain knows, I can cut expenses if needed. I have room, I'm not trapped. Your nervous system stays calmer. That's why 2 people making the same money can feel radically different. One feels constant pressure, the other sleeps fine. Same income, different structure, and rich families designed for that calm. Here's the subtle part. They don't sit their kids down and lecture them about spreadsheets. They model things like delaying upgrades, saying no without guilt, living below obvious capacity, treating big expenses as strategic, not emotional. So kids internalize, we don't spend because we can. We spend because it makes sense. That belief alone protects them for life. Let's make this practical. Here's a simple exercise I want you to do. No apps, no budgets, no spreadsheets. Write down your monthly income, your fixed expenses, things you cannot easily change. Now answer this honestly. If my income dropped by 20% tomorrow, what breaks first? That's your lack of control zone. Wealthy families teach kids to minimize that zone early, and you can start doing it now. Not by cutting everything, but by slowly redesigning what's fixed and what's flexible. Now you might be thinking, Bobby, but isn't the real key investing? Like stocks, real estate, all that? Yes, but here's what most people get backwards. Investing only works after you master control. And this leads directly into rule number 2, the one almost no one is explicitly taught. Because rich families don't just save money, they mentally separate it in a way that completely changes behavior. And once you see it, you'll never look at your bank account the same way again. Rule number 2, never let all your money live in the same place. This rule sounds boring. It sounds obvious, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. Here's what most people don't realize. Where your money lives changes how your brain treats it. Not logically, emotionally. And wealthy families understand this very early. Let me describe how most people handle money. Paycheck comes in. Everything goes into one checking account. From that same account, you pay rent, pay bills, buy groceries, eat out, shop online at 11:47 p.m. because you deserve it. Same pile of money, same visual number. And your brain makes a dangerous assumption. If there's money there, it's available. This is not a discipline issue, it's a cognitive bias. Behavioral psychologists call this mental accounting. We treat money differently depending on how it's labeled, even if the total amount is identical. Wealthy families use this bias on purpose. Most people accidentally use it against themselves. Let's do something quick. Imagine you have $6,000 in one checking account. Now imagine this instead. $2,000 in checking, $2,000 in bills account, $2,000 in savings. Same $6,000. But be honest. Which scenario makes you feel more broke? Exactly. Nothing changed mathematically. Everything changed psychologically. This is why rich families separate money aggressively. Not because it's efficient, but because it protects future decisions from present emotions. Your brain is lazy. It uses shortcuts. When all your money is in one place, your brain constantly recalculates, what can I afford right now? That creates friction, decision fatigue, impulse spending. But when money is separated, the decision is already made. Spending money feels like breaking a rule, not just making a choice. And that tiny bit of friction changes behavior dramatically. This is why studies show people save more when savings are automatic and invisible, even if they earn the same amount. Out of sight, out of reach, psychologically. What wealthy families teach kids? Early. They teach things like, this money isn't for touching. That account has a job. Just because you see it doesn't mean it's yours. They normalize non-spendable money. Most people grow up thinking all money is equal. Rich families teach, no, some money is sacred. That belief alone creates long-term wealth. Now you might be thinking, but I know what my savings are. I won't touch them. Look, intentions don't matter here. Stress overrides intentions. When life hits, car trouble, emotions, boredom, your brain reaches for what's easiest. If your savings are one transfer away, they're not protected. Wealthy families design systems assuming we are emotional humans, not perfect ones. Here's something you can do this week. Create 3 separate money buckets: spending, daily life, bills, non-negotiables, future, savings, investing. Even if the amounts are small, even if it feels silly, the goal isn't optimization, it's behavioral alignment. Once money has a job, it stops wandering. Here's the sneaky part. This rule doesn't just help you save, it changes how you think. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, which money would this come from? That's a totally different mental framework. And that framework is one of the biggest differences between people who build wealth slowly and people who stay stuck despite earning more. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because rule number 3 isn't about money mechanics at all. It's about time. And rich families teach a version of time that most people never internalize. One that quietly shapes every financial decision they make. This rule explains why some people are patient with money, and others constantly feel behind. Rule number 3, rich families think in decades, not months. This rule is subtle. No one says it out loud, no one writes it on a whiteboard, but it silently shapes every decision wealthy families make. Here's what most people don't realize. Most financial stress comes from having the wrong time horizon. Let me describe the default setting most people operate from. They're thinking in, this month, next paycheck, next bill, next vacation, next emergency money becomes reactive. Every decision is framed as, can I handle this right now? And when you live like that, everything feels urgent. Everything feels tight. Everything feels fragile, even when your income is decent. This isn't because people are bad with money. It's because their time horizon is too short. Wealthy families don't ask, can we afford this month? They ask, what does this do to us over the next 10 years? That one shift changes everything. They think in decades, phases, long arcs. And because of that, they can tolerate short-term discomfort without panic. This is why they don't rush investments, aren't emotional during downturns, don't constantly feel behind. Their brain isn't screaming for immediate relief. Your brain is wired to prioritize now over later. Psychologists call this present bias. A dollar today feels more valuable than a dollar tomorrow, even if tomorrow's dollar is larger. This is why people avoid investing. People sell at the worst time. People abandon long-term plans. Wealthy families counteract this by teaching kids early that time is an asset, not an enemy. They normalize waiting. Most people grow up learning. Waiting means you're missing out. Wealthy families learn. Waiting means you're positioning. Let's make this concrete. Imagine two people. Person A saves $300 a month for 10 years, then stops. Person B saves nothing for 10 years, then saves $600 a month for 20 years. Who ends up with more? Most people guess person B. But because of compound growth, person A often wins or comes shockingly close, despite investing half as much monthly. Why? Time did the heavy lifting. This is why wealthy families don't obsess over perfect timing. They obsess over starting early and staying consistent. When your time horizon is long, market drops feel temporary. Bad months don't feel catastrophic. Progress feels inevitable. When your time horizon is short, every setback feels personal. Every expense feels threatening. Every delay feels like failure. Same situation, different frame. This is why two people in the same financial position can feel radically different emotionally. They hear things like, "This will pay off later. We're playing the long game. Be patient." So they grow up comfortable with not seeing immediate results. Most people grow up needing proof right now, and money punishes impatience. Here's a powerful exercise. Write down where you want your finances to be in 10 years, not exact numbers, structure, lifestyle, flexibility. Now ask, what decisions would future me thank me for? That question alone rewires behavior. It pulls you out of panic mode and into strategy mode. Now you might be thinking, Bobby, but what about enjoyment? Isn't this just delayed living? And that question leads us directly into rule number 4, the one that surprises most people. Because wealthy families don't avoid pleasure. They just follow a very different rule about when pleasure is allowed, and when it quietly destroys wealth. That rule ties everything together. Rule number 4, enjoyment comes after structure, not before. This rule is the one that most people misunderstand. And honestly, it's the reason a lot of people resent rich families without realizing why. Because from the outside, it looks like they're just better at enjoying life. Vacations, nice dinners, freedom. But here's what most people don't realize. Wealthy families don't avoid pleasure. They delay it, strategically. Most people are taught this pattern. Work hard, reward yourself, figure it out later. And look, that sounds healthy. You don't want to be miserable. You don't want to feel deprived. You don't want to live like a monk. So pleasure becomes emotional relief. Bad week, spend, stressful month, treat yourself. Feeling behind? You deserve something nice. The problem isn't the spending. The problem is when it happens. Pleasure becomes a coping mechanism instead of a celebration. And when pleasure comes before structure, it quietly destroys momentum. Wealthy families flip the order. Structure, stability, enjoyment. They don't use spending to regulate emotions. They use spending to mark progress. That's a huge psychological difference. Spending becomes intentional, not reactive, which means no guilt, no anxiety, no, I shouldn't have done that, hangover. Pleasure feels clean. Here's the psychological piece. Your brain wants relief now. It doesn't care about future you. So when life feels heavy, spending gives you dopamine control, temporary comfort. Wealthy families teach kids, early, that relief doesn't come from spending. It comes from knowing things are handled. Bills paid, savings automated, future protected. Only then does spending feel good. Let's say you want to take a $3,000 vacation. Most people do this. Put it on a card. Stress later. Pay interest associate fun with anxiety. Wealthy families do this. Decide early, automate toward it. Let anticipation build. Enjoy it fully, without stress. Same vacation. Completely different emotional experience. This is why rich families don't feel guilty enjoying money. They earned the enjoyment structurally, not emotionally. Here are the hidden lesson kids absorb they learn. Fun doesn't threaten safety. Enjoyment is allowed when systems are solid. Money isn't chaotic, so they grow up calm around money. Most people grow up oscillating between guilt and impulse. Let's connect the dots. Rule number 1, control beats income. You're not trapped by your lifestyle. Rule number 2, separate your money. Emotion doesn't hijack decisions. Rule number 3, think in decades. Short-term stress loses power. Rule number 4, enjoyment follows structure. Money becomes a tool, not a drug. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being intentional. Here's the empowering part. You don't need more income, a perfect plan, a finance degree, or a rich family. You need to adopt better rules. Rules beat motivation. Rules beat discipline. Rules beat willpower. And once you change the rules, behavior follows naturally. This week, do 3 things. Lower one fixed cost, even slightly. Control matters more than amount. Create one protected money bucket. Something that's not for touching. Delay one impulse purchase. Not to deprive yourself, but to reclaim control. That's it. Small shifts, big leverage. Here's the truth most people never hear. Wealth isn't built by people who love money. It's built by people who understand how their mind interacts with it. And once you see these rules, you can't unsee them. If this helped you see money differently, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and share this with someone who feels stuck financially but doesn't know why. Because sometimes, the problem isn't how hard you're working. It's the rules you were never taught. And now, you have them.